Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper captures the final moments of peace before a world-altering shift. Historically, this meal marks the starting gun for a 24-hour countdown that ends with an execution. To understand how a dinner escalated into a death sentence, you have to look at the powder keg that was first-century Jerusalem. The city sat at the heart of Judea, a province tightly controlled by the Roman Empire. Rome maintained order through a compromise. Jewish citizens kept their religious autonomy and internal laws, provided they never challenged the emperor's ultimate authority. Jesus of Nazareth stepped directly into this tension. While many expected a military messiah to drive out the Romans, he preached an internal revolution, a change in the soul rather than an uprising in the streets. The clock starts around 6 p.m. Jesus gathers with his 12 disciples for the Passover meal. In a display of humility that shocked his followers, he assumed the role of a household slave and washed their feet. The mood shifted abruptly when Jesus announced that a traitor sat among them. The room descended into confusion as the disciples asked one by one if they were the one who would hand him over. Judas Iscariot had already negotiated the price. He agreed to betray Jesus for 30 silver coins, the exact legal value of a slave under local law at the time. That intimate dinner successfully triggered a ruthless political and legal machine that would be nearly impossible to stop. Late that night, the group retreated to an isolated grove of olive trees outside the city walls. This was the Garden of Gethsemane, a place of silence where Jesus frequently went to pray. This diagram shows the sweat glands and the network of capillaries beneath the skin. It illustrates a rare medical phenomenon called hematidrosis, which Jesus reportedly experienced during his prayer in the garden. Under extreme psychological distress, these tiny blood vessels can rupture. The blood then leaks into the sweat glands and is pushed to the surface of the skin. It indicates a level of physical and emotional strain that medicine only sees in cases of severe trauma. The isolation ended when Judas arrived with temple guards. He identified Jesus with a kiss, a standard greeting between a student and teacher that served as the final signal for the arrest. Violence broke out immediately as the disciple Peter drew a sword and slashed a guard's ear. Jesus intervened, stopping the fight and healing the wounded man in front of his captors. By surrendering and stopping the retaliation, Jesus chose to follow the path of sacrifice, rather than igniting a bloody, localized rebellion in the middle of the night. It's now 1 a.m. To avoid a public riot, the guards rushed Jesus to the residence of Annas and Caiaphas for an unrecorded hearing. By conducting this at night, the religious leaders bypassed their own legal procedures, which strictly forbade capital trials after dark. During the interrogation, Caiaphas asked Jesus directly if he was the Son of God. Jesus replied, "I am." It was the exact testimony the council needed to charge him with blasphemy. While Jesus stood trial, his followers scattered. Peter denied knowing him 3 times out of fear, and Judas, overcome by the consequences of his betrayal, threw his silver back into the temple and took his own life. At 8 a.m., the plan hit a hurdle. While the council wanted Jesus dead, blasphemy was not a capital crime under Roman law. They could not legally execute him themselves. They shifted their strategy, dragging Jesus to the Roman governor and changing the charge to a political threat, subverting Rome by calling himself King of the Jews. This stone, discovered in 1961, bears a Latin inscription that officially documents Pontius Pilate's title as the Roman prefect of Judea. Pilate found no reason to execute a man who preached peace. He attempted to send the prisoner to Herod, but he was eventually cornered by an agitated mob demanding a conviction. To maintain order, Pilate chose a symbolic compromise. He literally washed his hands of the responsibility, released a violent criminal named Barabbas, and condemned Jesus to the cross. In a matter of hours, religious paranoia and Roman political self-preservation had successfully manufactured a death sentence for a pacifist. Jesus was forced onto a grueling public march through the streets of Jerusalem. This narrow path is remembered today by millions as the Via Dolorosa. This diagram illustrates the biomechanics of Roman crucifixion, a slow-motion tool of psychological terror. Gravity pulls the body down, compressing the lungs. To breathe, the victim must push up on their nailed feet, scraping against rough wood in constant, agonizing friction. Despite this torture, Jesus used his limited breath to ask for mercy for his executioners, praying that God would forgive them. He spent his final hours interacting with Demas, the criminal crucified beside him. Upon the man's repentance, Jesus offered a famous promise of salvation. Even when stripped of all power and subjected to maximum physical pain, he remained completely focused on his spiritual mission. At 3 p.m., a sudden darkness fell over the city. Jesus declared, "It is finished," and died, fulfilling the ancient prophecies of a suffering innocent. Contemporary accounts describe the symbolic tearing of the temple veil at the moment of his death. To confirm he was gone, a Roman soldier pierced his side with a spear. According to legend, that soldier was Longinus. Healed of blindness by the blood, he converted to the faith he was tasked with crushing. There is a massive historical irony in these events. The 24 hours designed by an empire to permanently destroy a movement served instead as its ultimate catalyst, turning fearful fugitives into the founders of a faith that outlasted Rome itself.